Wake Up Jacob Israelite Prepper. And shout out to my TBIC brothers. There's a couple of ways you can recognize if you are in a cult, or if you just want to recognize a cult altogether. It's a couple of keys. I'm going to give you a couple of them. I'll give you a few. But let me just say that if we look at the definition of cult, you know, it's like organization of people, you know, religious, you know, a group of people with religious beliefs that may be looked at as strange, or a particular veneration of a person, you know, but I can extend it to, like, you know, a thing or a concept, an idea or something like that. You know, people who perform idol worship, they're cults too, you know, that kind of thing. But a lot of things are cults. Let me just say that first. A lot of things are cults. I mean, you can go to the top and work your way down different cults. But the difference is there are good cults and bad cults. And you need to understand or how to recognize a bad cult, right? Now, I know they try to tighten it up and it's like, oh, just a small group of people, a couple of fanatics or whatever, and then they're just exalting one guy and stuff like that, right? But I think it's a group of people who just, you know, they have their own belief system. You know, it's almost like a closed group almost. They have their own little belief system. And you can go like, you know, the government, the powers that be. It's kind of like a cult, right? It's not religious, but it's kind of like a cult. Every cult doesn't have to be solely religious. You can have a fraternity or a sorority. There's a bunch of like-minded people. It's a, you know, kind of inclusive in a way. You have to think like us, be like us, share our ideals and things like that. But again, remember, I'm saying there are good cults and bad cults. That's the difference. People try to just look at the word cult and seem like it's like the most, you know, evil thing. It's neutral, okay? There are good cults, there are bad cults. You know, if you can have a group of, you know, Israelites or something and they're behaving righteously, they're a cult. They're just a righteous cult, okay? So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I mean, the police officers and firefighters and, you know, like I said before, fraternities, sororities, military personnel, things like that, they all are, right? The difference is good cult, bad cult. So let me go ahead and tell you about like a bad cult. So how are you going to recognize it? A bad cult. One, if you have excessive veneration or admiration for one central person, one central figure. It's just excessive. It's too much. Why is this particular person so special? And please don't say, you know, the Messiah. Okay, don't say that. But anyway, any man. A group that kind of fit that is the whole, you know, Yahweh ben Yahweh. If you guys looked at a documentary on that, that was definitely a cult. You know, the David Koresh and stuff like that. That's a cult, you know. Charles Manson had followers and stuff like that. That's a cult. You guys get what I'm saying. If that's one. Number two, if you are penalized for leaving the group, if you're penalized for leaving the group. There's some gangs out there like that. You know, some of them in, blood out, or you know, you can't penalized for leaving the group. It's a cult. You know, if you have threats on your life, your character is assassinated, or you are, you know, are harmed or killed, for that matter, to leave the group, you're a cult. Or you're evil, you're bad, you're a cult. Shalom, Candace Washington. Shalom, shalom. couple of other things you can look at. If they pretty much emphasize doctrine, for instance, if you want to go religious, emphasize doctrine, outside of Scripture. When they start getting into their own personal doctrine outside of Scripture, where they have a doctrine, you really can't find it anywhere in Scripture. Or maybe they take one line or one half of a script, and they make a whole doctrine out of it. And that's what they stand on. That's a cult. That is a cult. They can't back it up with anything else. They got a half of a piece of a fraction of a scripture, and now their whole organization and outfit, is built around that. That is a cult. Or they emphasize one. How can I say this? If it's religious, they can, they'll harp on certain sins, and they'll completely commit other sins. I'll give you an example. If you go look at, the whole Yahweh ben Yahweh thing, right? Looking at that documentary and stuff like that, and one of the things that the leader, did for that in that group was he would start telling the men, stop sleeping with your wives and stuff like that. And as you might imagine, he started sleeping with their wives. Now we know this is adultery. And people were so brainwashed, they didn't care. It was like, okay, because he felt like, he had the Holy See. Okay? There was a dude down in Florida, and he's like, Jesus man, Jesus on earth, Jesus in the flesh. I come back, I'm Jesus in the flesh, okay? There's an idiot out in Australia, and he's supposed to be Jesus. Now he's Jesus. That is definitely a cult. Now let me go back to, like Yahweh ben Yahweh. Now we know that adultery is sin, but no one's speaking out in it. You're speaking out of it, right? Nobody's speaking out on it. But it's like, okay, don't sin, this is wicked, and yet you're committing wickedness. Nobody can say anything, right? Also, you can, number 3, you are discouraged from critical thinking. You're discouraged from critical thinking. We're supposed to study to show ourselves approved. If you cannot come to someone, in an organization, say, hey, I was looking at this, and maybe I'm confused, but if you can help me with this, oh, no, brother, no. I see, brother, what you got to understand. Come on, man. Come on. They just believe it. Just believe what I'm telling you. But just believe what I'm telling you. They don't want to prove it out. That is a cult. That is a cult. So, I gave you 3 of them, and I was just thinking about it, the other day, actually, when I was at Tabernacles with my brethren. It made me, think about it. I'm like, what is a cult? Because a lot of times you come into truth and people say, oh, this person, oh, you're in a cult. They just throw the word around, but they're not showing signs of a cult because you think differently than they do, because you unplugged from the matrix, because you no longer believe in the lie that you have been told over the years, because you woke up, Jacob. Now you're in a cult. No. It's got to go further than that. You got to do better than that. Half the time the people are saying you're in a cult, they're in a cult, because they don't even know what it is. They can't even recognize it. So it's one thing to give someone, honor and all that. It's another thing to venerate them, admire them, substitute, the Messiah for this person, and, things like that. I'm not talking about anybody in particular, because I can name a lot. I can name, cults. And, outside of the truth, some cults inside the truth. I mean, you can name cults. You guys probably, now that you have the criteria, you can start to recognize, and you can I think there may be a cult. Isolation. Fourth, that's a bonus. One more team. That's a bonus. Isolation, isolating you from your, just isolating you. Now, if you isolate yourself, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. You can isolate yourself. But what I'm talking about, they isolate you. And it's different when you come into the truth, right? And you're doing your thing, you're trying to walk, in righteousness, and people separate themselves from you. And that's okay. That's okay. They're doing that. You see what I'm saying? They're doing that. But if this ultra charismatic leader who, maybe like above reproach, just kind of like the one I told you earlier, who's above reproach, is telling you to go ahead and, separate yourself from everybody and separate yourself from, don't get me wrong. It's gonna happen naturally, right? It's gonna happen naturally, like coming into the truth and things like that. But what I'm saying is that they're isolating you. The reason they're doing it is so that, one, you're completely dependent on them, and two, the brainwashing process can begin. Period. The brainwashing process can begin. So you got to watch out for some of those things. You really got to look at some of those things. I just wanted to share some of that with you, how to recognize if you're being in a cult. There's nothing wrong with gathering with like-minded individuals. If you have a level of autonomy, it's okay. That's okay. Okay? You're not, not necessarily in a cult. But look at those things. Like I said, if you have the excessive veneration and admiration for a person or an ideal or a thing, I expanded it from that. You look at the definition, it's pretty much going to say, it's just, religious organization and the veneration of a person and stuff like that. I kind of expanded it a little bit. Because you could venerate an idol, right? And everybody can gather around an idol, and let's just, there are people crying over, statues of supposedly Mary, and she has little tears of blood in the statue and all that. People just, whatever. People, that's like a cult, that can be a cult, right? That can be a cult. Stuff like that. There are a lot of objects out there. There are a lot of objects out there that can be, worship. It's idolatry. So a lot of idolatrous practices can be a cult. But anyway, over veneration of a person, you are penalized for leaving. Okay, you're penalized for leaving. Of course, you got to see what kind of dig deeper a little bit. But you're penalized for leaving, and they do not like critical thinking. Okay, do not like critical thinking. And you can't go to the leader or whatever and ask them anything. You can't. They are above reproach. You cannot. They may have practices outside the Bible, whole doctrines outside the Bible. So you want to look at those things. Okay, those are some of the things that you want to consider, whether or not you're in a cult, part of a cult, things like that. So just keep that in mind. I just want to drop that in you guys. But hey, look, let's help each other out. Put something, when this live stream is over, put something in the comment section. What do you think? Those are my thoughts. That's not the only things, but you guys may have some ideas too. Put it in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe. Patriarchs rising. And all praises to our Messiah. See you guys on the next video. This is Life Prepper.